By 2007, Barry Beach had spent more than half his life at Montana State Prison, or similar lockups. Locked up at age 20 for the murder of Kim Nees, he'd watched his 30s come and go. He was 45 now. He'd never had a parole hearing, and he would never get one. With a sentence of 100 years, it was behind this forbidding wall of barbed wire that Barry Beach was destined to die.
You're the worst of the worst.
Obviously, the judge felt that I should never see society again.
You're not going to get out of here, are you?
When they gave me 100 years, that means they gave me 100 years to prove that I didn't commit the crime that put me behind prison bars.
And when Barry Beach sat down with us in January 2007, he had spent decades, literally, proclaiming his innocence, writing letters, filing appeals that went nowhere time after time, asking for help. Would anyone he wondered ever listen? A few did, until one of those letters reached this man.
We get 1,100 letters a year from people asking for our help.
This is the Reverend Jim McCloskey, the founder of a group called Centurion Ministries. Back in 1980, McCloskey, a former business executive then attending Princeton Divinity School, went to work as student chaplain at New Jersey's Trenton State Prison. There he became involved in the case of a convict who was later revealed to be innocent. And the experience changed his life, too.
I started Centurion. This is my sense of spiritual calling to do this work. But we could care less if those whom we serve, the convicted innocent in prison, it doesn't matter if they have any religious inclination at all.
And Centurion, running with a staff of just 6 and paid only through donations, has compiled quite a record. Over 30 years, McCloskey's group has freed from prison or death row 47 men and women wrongly convicted. So what does it feel like when one of these people gets out of prison?
Let me just say this, it doesn't get old. It's new and joyful every time.
But back in 1991, when Centurion received Barry Beach's first letter asking for help, it took 6 long years before a review was even begun.
Do you have to be convinced beyond any doubt that somebody is actually innocent?
Yes, we do. We don't take a case on unless we are convinced of the person's innocence.
So when Centurion's team, which included attorney Peter Camille and investigator Richard Hepburn, went to work, reading reports and trial transcripts, they took a hard look at any clues that might have told them Barry Beach was, or was not, telling the truth.
When I read it originally, the fact that this 17-year-old youngster, not a master criminal, was able to create this havoc and not leave one single scintilla of evidence that he was even there, I was suspicious.
But before Centurion would commit to the case, its investigators wondered, as anyone would, what about that confession taken by Louisiana detectives back in 1983? After all, Barry Beach was read his rights again and again. Before, he admitted to murder and then offered details of the crime police said only the killer would have known. How in the world could any serious investigation avoid those inescapable facts?
There is a signed confession. You ask anybody around the country, of course he did it.
There have been over 200 men exonerated by DNA from sexual assaults or murder, convicted, imprisoned, who have later been freed and exonerated. 25% of those men have falsely confessed to that crime when arrested under interrogation.
So Centurion, knowing that false confessions do indeed occur, dug a little deeper, consulting an expert who conducted a detailed analysis of Beach's 13-page confession and made a remarkable discovery. Beach's confession conflicted with the one thing investigators say never lies, the physical evidence at the crime scene. What did he get wrong? Well, for one thing, Beach told his interrogators that Kim had tried to get away from him by scrambling out the driver's side door. But the evidence showed she'd actually come out the passenger side door, right where that still unidentified bloody palm print was found.
All of the forensic evidence shows she was pulled out the passenger side. That's very clear from the blood spatter inside and outside the truck.
There was more. Beach told police his fingerprints weren't found on the truck because he wiped them off. Centurion wondered, how could Beach wipe off his prints but leave more than 24 others undisturbed? Then there was this. Beach told police he'd put the body in a plastic garbage bag feet first and then had dragged Kim down to the river by her shoulders. But the evidence showed Kim was dragged not by her shoulders, but by her feet. And police found not one shred of any plastic garbage bag anywhere along the rocky trail from the pickup to the river. Finally, Beach told police he'd made at least 3 separate trips to the river to dispose of the murder weapons, then the body, then the truck keys and Kim's jacket, as if the river were mere yards away, rather than the length of a football field.
Barry's story, and that's all it is a story, and all the elements of the story do not comport with the forensic facts and circumstances of the case, the crime scene, and the way the crime unfolded.
Then, with a little digging, Centurion uncovered what it believed to be some pretty disturbing information about the Louisiana detectives. Remember those 3 Louisiana murders about which detectives once questioned Beach? Well, months later, the same detectives filed charges against 2 other men who confessed to those murders. But later, their charges would be dropped, their confessions revealed to be false.
So you've got detectives with a track record of claiming that they've got detailed confessions with people with information that only the killer could know, and those are false confessions, and it speaks volumes about what they claim to be the validity of Barry's confession.
The doubts were adding up for Centurion. After coming to the conclusion that Beach's confession was false, its investigators made dozens of trips to Montana searching for witnesses and physical evidence that might show Barry Beach was not the killer. It turned out the only physical evidence the state claimed might link Beach to the murder was a pubic hair found on Kim Neese's sweater, a hair an analyst said had similar characteristics to the hair of Barry Beach. He didn't say it was Barry's hair, just that it could have been. But it turned out that the hair and all the other evidence from the case had disappeared from Montana's crime lab.
And we asked the crime lab to allow us to have an expert go in, take a look at their record keeping, and try to do an inventory to see if maybe they misfiled it, misplaced it. And the word was absolutely no. Nobody's coming into our crime lab.
Any explanation?
No. They just say, we're not going to let you in there.
But what about the evidence that does exist? The fingerprints and that bloody palm print. Remember, none of those prints belonged to Barry Beach. So Centurion wondered, couldn't those prints be compared with all the other potential suspects in the case?
Does anybody care who that bloody palm print belongs to? Do you guys really care? If they really wanted to discover who that belonged to, they could do it. But they won't do it. And you know why they won't do it? Because they're afraid of the truth.
But if Barry Beach did not kill Kim Neese, then who did? Well, that's what makes this case a little different. Because Centurion's team not only believes that Barry Beach is innocent, but that it knows who is guilty. And you're about to hear from the witnesses who say they know the real story of what happened that night so long ago.
Coming up, troubling recollections.
She was talking about how the wrong person got put in jail.
What a strange thing to hear.
It gave me the creeps. She said we got away with the perfect crime.
When Dateline continues.